I'm super excited because we have joining us today a Serenity coach that's going to help women empower themselves to get from here through those hurdles. And I am super excited to have her here join me today. Denise Belisle. So Denise, welcome to our show today. How are you?
I'm very good. Thank you so much. I'm super excited to be here.
I love that. Melanie brought something up, and it was a question I had. She said, adios to toxic people. And as a house cleaner, I know that I worked in people's homes all day, every day, and
Yeah.
I was alone in my head. And if there were toxic people in my life, I would replay tapes in my head of like conversations we'd had, and they didn't go very well. And I would replay them again and again. And I would get mad all over again in my head. And
Yeah.
now I'm by myself and that person isn't even around, but I was retoxicating myself with all this negativity by replaying this in my head. Like,
Yeah.
how dare they say this? And
Yeah.
as I played it over again in my head, I'm like, that's not fair. That's not true. And I was doing it to myself because the
Yeah.
person was now gone. They weren't
They
part
don't
of
care.
today's conversation.
care.
They'd moved on with their life. And here I am
know.
rehashing it over and over in my head, right? How
Yeah.
unhealthy is that?
Yeah.
And so share with us a little bit about how we have these thoughts in our head and how that turns into the negativity that then manifests itself in our physical illness that then shows up as old age or aches and pains and all this other stuff.
Yeah, I have a perfect tool here, and it's my cup. And my cup says, I know it's backward, but it says, it's all good. And that's something I say all the time. Because whether something happened, like you just explained, something happened a few days ago, a few years ago, decades ago. And as we move forward, we try to rehash that situation. We try to use that situation. Oh, I should have said that. I should have told him that. I can't believe that he or she did that or said that or that happened. How dare them to, or whomever.
It's interesting that you bring that up because as I was working through some of these issues in my head, I asked myself some questions that were really painful. And my question was, are you feeling better because you rehashed this in your head? I'm like, no, I actually feel worse. Why are you doing it? Because you know better. Like, why do you keep doing this? I don't know. Maybe I'm going to get even in my head. Is that going to fix anything? It's not. And if I'm not going to be able to fix anything in my head, and it's not going to make anything better by rehashing it in my head, what could I be doing instead? And what I decided inside, and it was a podcast that I listened to. I am also a firm believer in positivity. And as I started listening to stuff that was more positive, somebody on a podcast said that you are the sum of the top 5 people that you hang out with. I was hanging out with myself, but I was bringing these other people, toxic people, into my space. So I realized in a weird, twisted sort of way, I was entertaining 5 other people that were really negative and hateful in my life, and I was spending the most amount of time with those people. And I thought, wow, that's really unhealthy. Angela, why are you doing this? Please stop. And so then I decided that whenever I started thinking about these people, instead of being like angry and bitter, that I would instead send peace to them. Like, I forgive you, I'm moving on. But then I was like, I didn't even know what forgiveness was. I hear about forgiveness, but what is that? What does that look like? And I didn't have a way to forgive. I didn't really know what that looked like. And then I thought, wait a second, what if I'm cleaning by myself all day? No one can see me. I'm by myself. What if I imagined these hateful people that have caused me so much angst? What if I imagined actually giving them a genuine hug? Like, I really mean this from my heart. And how does that look and how does that feel? And it was really weird because my first several reactions to trying that out was a really visceral, no way kind of a thing. I'll show you.
Yeah.
But the more I focused on it, and I would find myself wake up in the morning and you're not quite awake. And there's this kind of in-between moment of I'm asleep and I want to go back to sleep, but I'm kind of awake. I would just spend that moment or two before I got up in the day and I got distracted. Let me just focus on this one person for a minute and let me just imagine giving them a really big hug and setting the tone for my day so that as I start my day, I'm not starting it by fixing breakfast and then thinking about all this hate and whatever that is coming through for me, but really focus on today I'm going to embrace this person and I'm going to send them compassion and kindness. And I don't know why we have the angst we do. And I don't really even need to know. I don't need to resolve it. I just need to get to a place in my heart where I can hug this person like a virtual hug, but do this in an authentic way and with sincerity. And what's really interesting is I changed.
Yeah,
So
of
they
course.
didn't change because, like, we've stayed in touch, but they're still miserable, mean, hateful people towards me. But I've changed.
Your
And
attitude towards the situation have changed. You
yeah,
remove the filter of hate and you replace them with filter of love. And that changed completely the way you feel.
yeah. And what's really weird is I've noticed that I am at a better place when I see them because they're relatives. So I can't not see them,
Yeah.
but I don't want them in my life because they are so negative and so
Yeah.
miserable and whatever. But what I've noticed is when we are together, for me, it's different.
And that's the thing. If you learn to distance yourself from action reaction, that you think of something and then you explode, your brain goes all over the place. Or so if you're faced to them, you verbally express your feeling. But as you become more conscious and you make different choices, you distance yourself from that explosion. And
Mhm.
when no, 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 when you walk away, right? It's like, I don't care. You're not
No,
affecting me anymore.
here's the really weird part. I remember telling them one time that I did love them, and they got really upset. Like, how dare you? We don't say those words in our family or whatever. And I said, you know what? And this is, I'm not trying to be argumentative, but I said, if the worst thing that happens is that someone tells you they love you, you're still going to be okay. You know what I mean? Not
Yeah,
the end of the
yeah,
world if someone loves you. You're going to be
yeah,
okay.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
And it was not to pick a fight or whatever. It was not to
Yeah,
disagree with them, but to really set the tone because
yeah.
I knew for myself, and it was literally affecting my health. The conscious choice is where you say, wait a second, I cannot do all things, but there are some things I can do. And I know for me, it was a conscious change. Tell me, what is your experience about people who are struggling with wanting to change but don't know how?
As I mentioned earlier, but the first step is making that decision and being aware of what is it that is bugging us. How is that affecting me? Do I want to feel like that when I think about these people? So when you become more aware of, like, I have a test that's called the saboteur assessment. When people are doing this test, they have a list of who are their top saboteurs. For example, some people might have the victim as the top saboteur. Somebody else might be a controller. Somebody else might be an hyperachiever. And when you recognize, and that test is fairly accurate. So whomever so far that have done it and talked to me about it, about the results, they say, I can't believe that this is me. Look at this. So when I work with people, once they recognize these voices in their mind, which are those saboteurs, then recognition is first. Like, I guess that's my saboteur talking. That's not me. It's that little voice that telling me, poor, poor little me. But in reality, everybody else is in that situation. It's not just me, right? So then we work through recognizing that these voices are not attached to you and they might have been there in the past to protect you because they often come as a child to protect you, to make you feel that you're going to be safe. Yeah, you're right to be sad because you've been abused or who knows what, right? But as we grow as adults, we often carry them like our favorite little doll, right? But once you start to recognize them, what I do is I teach people to build a force field in front of them. So when the saboteur comes to talk to them, I know you're behind that, but I can't hear you. Sorry. I'm not open to discussion here. I'm going in that direction. So that force field, of course, sometimes we're weaker and then they can enter our bubble. And then we say, hey, what are you doing here? I don't want to deal with you right now. So you can't quiet yourself down. I know you're there. You were good at some point, but I don't need you anymore. So as you get to recognize your behaviors, and you say, I don't really want to do that. I'm tired of being upset with these people. I'm tired to live that negativity in my mind. I want to change.
But I did go cold turkey. I
Mm.
realized, and this was a really interesting observation for me because I discovered that, and I'm from a large family. I'm the fourth oldest of 19 kids. And so I
Crazy mom.
discovered in my home growing up, there was a lot of chaos. And it
course.
wasn't bad chaos. It's just when you have that many people under one roof, there's a lot of stuff happening. So it's things like, oh no, someone is popping popcorn and they don't have a popcorn popper lid on the popper. It's just now popping all over the kitchen. Like, somebody help. And so then I would like rush in there to try to help. Oh no, somebody just spilt a gallon of milk. And you're like, oh no. And you go and you rush to clean it up. And someone has a piano lesson. Can someone take them to piano? And someone has a pack meeting for scouts.
My goodness.
And so this was my norm, right? I was the fourth to the oldest and I was caught up in this, all these little things happening all the time. And it was chaotic. And in a pleasant sort of way, they were all manageable, but I got really good at juggling all of these balls. So then when I moved away from home, it was just me. I didn't have all the chaos and all the stuff. And I didn't realize that was my norm. So what I started doing is I would find relationships that were really chaotic, that had all these broken parts to them. And then I was like, hey, I know what to do, right? I can juggle all these balls and I can fix whatever's going on here. And that was my norm and that was my comfort zone.
You were a fixer.
Yeah, and I didn't know that. So I woke up one day and I'm like, wait a second, something's wrong. Because I've been in a series of bad relationships and they're all with substance abusers and they're all very charismatic. And it's like getting in a car accident every day. There's all this stuff happening every day. And there's one common denominator and it's me. Why am I attracting that into my life? Because I don't drink and I'm not a substance abuser and I don't do drugs and alcohol. And I'm so stressed out and I'm full of anxiety. But why? I'm the common denominator. And I stopped and I realized, wait a second, I think I'm a drama addict. And I was thinking if there's a 12-step program or something for Drama Anonymous, I should go because I think I need my daily fix.
Yep.
And then I was like, what does it look like if I lived a life where there was no daily fix? Oh man, that would be so boring. And I started laughing. I'm like, am I willing to live a boring life? I guess I could give it a try. I've never done this before, but what if I did? And I had been through a series of relationships, like 10 years. I dated like 10 years of nerds. I say nerds, they were nice people and they weren't computer nerds. They were just nerds. And you talked about creating a bubble around you.
Yeah.
And for me, it was a shark-proof cage. I'd been to an aquarium where I saw this shark-proof cage that was, they drop them in the bottom of the ocean and a photographer will go in there and they will take pictures of sharks and the shark can't get to them. And so I used that as my mantra. And so for 1 year, the year was 1994. And I said, okay, for 1 year, and I'm going to see if I can do this. For 1 year, I'm not going to have any drama and I'm not going to have any anger in my life. And I don't know what that looks like, but I'm going to give it a try. I'm going to be really conscientious of this every day for 1 year. And I went cold turkey. And what was really interesting during that year is because every time like my phone would ring and I'd have the caller ID on my phone and I'm like, it's a drama addict. And it was another person that would trigger my drama that I would say shark-proof. Shark-proof. Okay, take a deep breath, stop. Take a deep breath. Okay, now you're going to hear the conversation and you're not going to agree or disagree. You're just going to be neutral in this conversation. All right, get ready, get set, go. And then I would answer the phone. And it was interesting because within a matter of about 3 months, I lost all my friends. I lost them all. All my drama friends went away. They were like, you're not fun anymore. And it was a conscious thing. And what I noticed was the hot buttons, the triggers that used to really get me fired up stopped working. I mean, they still worked on the inside. I was just like, and then I was just like, don't let this show. And then I noticed that I started attracting really boring people into my life. And I started finding some really, really nice people. And I was like, oh, wow, these are really cool people. And they're super boring. And that's okay. It was really weird because I thought I was looking for a relationship. And for 10 years, nothing worked out. And when I met the man that I married, he's like the most boring person ever. He's so boring. And he's the nicest person I've ever met. And I'm like, is that okay? Is something wrong with me that I'm now okay with being around boring people? And I got to tell you, we just celebrated 21 years of being married. And he's still my best friend to this. And he's still boring. But how refreshing is it to wake up every day and know that my world is not going to collapse today?
Yeah, and it's stable and it's nice and it's no drama. And, and what I heard, he loves you and he cares for you. I like boring.
Boring is good. It's so good. This was amazing. Thank you so much, Denise, for joining us. And thanks, everybody. I just really appreciate the support that you have provided us. Because of you, we keep showing up. Until then, please live a life of peace and serenity.
Thank you.